It's been often said that necessity is the mother of invention, and managing all the different platforms and environments that we have today is pretty hard. But imagine, just for a moment, that it was easier. Imagine that in your not-so-distant future, you could project on-prem resources into the cloud, along with all of the other cloud platforms that you use, like AWS and Google or Alibaba. This would enable you to leverage Azure's awesome management capabilities and services so that you could have a single pane of glass and make your work just a little bit easier. That sound pretty useful? Well, we're going to show you how you can do it today with Azure ARC. I'm Dean Cifola, and this is the Azure Academy. The hybrid cloud is something Microsoft has been invested in for a long time. One of the holy grails of that hybrid setup is the ability to manage everything, to make all of your devices seem like first-class citizens in the cloud, is what Azure ARC is all about. Let's take a quick second and learn a little bit about Azure ARC by going to azure.com/hybrid in our web browser. So right off the bat, in case you were not aware, as of today's date, is in public preview. So all of these services that we want in the end state are not quite here, but we will be turning them on as we go down the road. Today, we can see that there are several companies that are utilizing Azure ARC's capabilities already, and those happen in three key areas at present: servers, data, and Kubernetes clusters. And we are planning for a series on Kubernetes, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss that. But these three sets of services also exist in three potential areas, and that would be across multi-cloud like Google, AWS, etc., on-premise, and also at the edge. So this deals with IoT-type solutions and Azure Stack-based solutions. So Azure ARC will provide a great breadth of services that we can leverage across all of these different platforms so that we don't have to change the way that we want to work. We can just reduce the complexity of how we manage. So with that, I'm going to close this page and we're going to look at the documentation. Again, because this is in preview, the Azure ARC Docs are not directly linked from the regular Azure Docs page, so I will have this link in the description below. But basically, what we're going to do is take any Windows or Linux server, we're going to add an agent onto that box. The box will show up in Azure, and then we can do stuff to it. So with that, we do have certain clients that are supported under this preview, and we have Windows Server 2012 R2 or newer, and Ubuntu 16 and 18.04. So be aware of that as you are running through this. And again, this is preview, so when we go full general availability, I would expect that we would have support for more operating systems. And the requirements that I was mentioning around management from your network side are all listed here in the docs as well. And just be sure that you can hit all of these different URLs from wherever your stuff is located. If you are behind a proxy, then we do also support some proxy configurations. So today we're going to walk through this pretty easily, and we're going to run some PowerShell here so that we can register our providers, install our agents, and then our VMs will show up in the portal, and then we can start managing them. So let's get into it. And here I have my PowerShell open, and I first am going to check whether or not I am registered with these two providers, Microsoft.hybridcompute and Microsoft.guestconfiguration. And in just a second or two, that'll come back. And I am registered already with guest configurations, but not hybrid compute. So I need to run a command to register that. And we'll just run that command from the documentation. And we are in the state of registering. And we'll have to check on that in a moment or two, just so we know that we can start this process. And that only took about 5 seconds to get registered. So now we're good to go to start using Azure ARC. And we're going to do that by downloading the agent. And we actually get to the download from the Azure portal. So let's go over there. So here in the Azure portal, I've already got Azure Arc at the top here, but if you do not, you can just type it up in the search bar and that'll get you there, or you can find it from the All Services menu as well. And inside Azure Arc, we give you this overview so you know what's basically going on. All of your servers would be managed from this first section, Kubernetes from this second, and data services like SQL will be managed from this third. And you do have to sign up for these previews individually. Again, once this goes GA, this will all be enabled by default. So I'll click on Manage Servers and I will hit Create Machine Azure Arc. And now we have two ways to do this. So if you have a lot of machines, then you can do this at scale. If we look at those instructions here, is to create a service principal. And we do have the code here for how you go about doing that. And then we can also do the agent download and installation commands from here for Windows or for Linux, and then run a PowerShell at scale or bash to be able to do this across many, many systems. But for the moment, we're going to go back to the portal here and just do one at a time by clicking this Generate Scripts button to get started. And then we select our subscription that we want to be in, as well as the resource group. And I've got one here called Azure ARC. And then we have to select our region. And currently in preview, we're in 3 regions. So since my machines are in the US geography, I'll choose West US. And then we select whether these are Windows or Linux systems. So mine are going to be Windows. And then we hit Next here. And then if you are using a proxy server, you would put the proxy server's IP and port. I am not, so I will just hit Next. And then in the tags section, we'll add whatever tags we like. So the tags that I've added here are to help me understand what it is that we are going to be managing here, as well as where it's located. So I have my cost center and application. We've seen those in the past, but this is also for my lab environment. The target systems here have a maintenance window of every 3rd Wednesday. We have our support and our general contact, as well as what location these are on that we are supporting them, in this case on premise. And you could certainly add whatever tags fit your terminologies in your environments. So we'll hit Next here. And if this is your first time using Azure Arc, you will have to register here for the preview, and that's just the click of a button. And then we can hit the download button here to download that script. So I flipped over to one of my Hyper-V servers, and this is running 2 virtual machines here, Arc VM 1 and Arc VM 2. And we're going to paste our script here, and that'll download for us the particular agent package, run the package, and start the agent program so that we can start managing this from Azure. So I'll run each of these. And what we need to do now is complete the onboarding process. So we'll copy this device login URL and paste that in our web browser. And then we provide our login code that we generated from our script. And then we hit Next. And then we provide our Azure credentials. And we have successfully connected this machine to Azure. So I'll repeat that on the other VM just to save time. And let's go over to the Azure portal. And back in the portal, we can just hit our refresh button. And we can see that we've got one of our VMs registered here, and the other one should be here in just a moment. And we can see back in that VM, we do have a successful registration code here. And our VM does get an ID just like every other Azure resource. And there we go. We've got both systems registered in the cloud and connected. So now that we have them, what can we actually do with them? Well, let's first click on one of them. In the top overview section here, we can see all the tags that we registered, which operating system platform this is on, including the version and our agent version. And then we can always delete the resource from here if we no longer need it. And going down the blade, we've got our activity logs. So all processes that we do against this resource is going to show in the activity logs. So when we change anything, do locks, manage access, all of that will show just like every other Azure resource. And speaking of access, we can change our access controls in our role assignments so that we have specific users or groups assigned to manage this asset. And we can always change the tags as well. Under the properties blade, we can see the full resource ID of this VM, what resource group it's in, etc. Under locks, we can add a read or delete lock here. And those function just like all other locks in the cloud. And then the other stuff here is operations and logs, and we'll come back to those through the overview screen. So this section down here, how to manage and govern our VMs, we've already looked at part of that under Manage Access, which again goes back to Access Control. And then we have our second button here, which is View Compliance. So when we click that, that brings us to the Operation Policy section. We want to assign some new policies that are specific for our ARC systems. So we'll go to Assign an Initiative. So we'll click the Scope button here and select down to our Azure ARC resource group. And then we'll select the Initiative Definition button and we'll filter by built-in initiatives and we'll search for the word time. Here's an initiative for time zones. So there are two policies here. The first will do an audit that the machine is in the proper time zone. If not, then the remediation policy will be here to add the VM to the correct time zone. We'll add a quick description and then we'll hit next. And now we select the time zone that we want everyone set to. In this case, I'll do it for Pacific time and we'll hit next. And we could check this box if we want a remediation task be automatically created. But in this case, I'll leave that off. And we'll be needing a managed identity for this process to do the remediation. And that means that we need to put it somewhere. So EastUS is fine with me. And then we also need permissions associated with that ID. And in this case, we need contributor access. So we'll hit next and then we'll hit create. And now that our initiative is staged, all we have to do is wait for this to do its checks and then we'll see its status. And we can see that we've come back not fully compliant here. So if we click on our policies, we can see which policies are in violation. And then we can even come up with remediations for this because we have the deploy policy here. So we can click on remediation task. And then we've got our definition already set. And if we want to view just the definition of this deploy policy, we can do that and make sure that it's what we want. Then you can also check this box if you want to, which will reevaluate the status of these items before processing the remediation. And this will do up to 500 resources before it does the remediation enforcement. But we'll just click the remediate button here and we can see that that remediation task is now in progress. So that'll take a few minutes to complete. In the meantime, let's go back to Azure ARC and we'll go to our second VM and let's go to the logs section. So what we wanted to provide through the log integration into ARC is an easy way for you to see a resource ID correlated view of all of the logs on this system. If you want more telemetry data, you can certainly deploy the MMA agent, which we'll do in a moment. But if I run a query here that I use on a lot of my systems, give me the last several records in Azure Activity, and we can pull up any one of these records and we can see what's going on, what the compliance check here in this case that was going on from our Azure policy, and we can see which policy definitions were run against this. So you can really see all the detail just as if it was an Azure resource, because now effectively it is. But we can get that more full experience of log analytics if we deploy the MMA agent and even the service mapping agent. So inside my log analytics workspace where I want this computer to be registered, I'll go under the settings here and go to advanced settings. And then under my connected sources for either Windows or Linux, I'll click the download agent link and that'll download in just a few seconds. And let's flip over to our VMs again. And with those agents downloaded, now we'll run the installation and we'll hit next and agree to the terms. The default install location is fine with me. And I'll check the box to connect to Log Analytics and hit next. Then I need to provide my workstation ID and key and which cloud I'm connecting to. And then we'll hit next. And I will choose to use Microsoft Updates for this and hit install. And then we'll hit finish. And I'll also install the dependency mapping agent. And that just takes a few seconds. And we'll hit finish on that as well. So I will repeat these on the other VM as well in the background, and let's go back to the Azure portal. And so we're back in Azure ARC, so let's click on one of our VMs and we'll go to the logs section. And then under the search through the logs link here, we'll click the link to run the last 500 logs. So we see we've got some performance information coming back, as well as if we scroll down here, we've got some VM port information. And this particular port is 40342. So that means that we should be able to see the service map data now. So if we go to the Azure monitoring space and to virtual machines, and we click on the map link at the top. So you have to set your workspace to be the one where your VMs are registered, and then you can select your grouping. In this case, Azure ARC, and then we can see our VMs. And of course, we can click on the VM, and then that'll bring out the properties blade here. And then we can see the machine properties, just some general info about our system, the number of processes that are running, and the Azure info, the name of the VM, where it's located, and the full ID. If we go under log events, then we can see the full breakdown of the kinds of logs that we have on this system, and also if there are any alerts. Thankfully, in this case, I don't have any. And we can also click on the port information here. We can see that both of these VMs are talking on port 443 and port 80. And if we open the dropdown, then we can see the list of the targets for that communication. And this one, for example, is an Op Insight port. So that's related to the Azure MMA agent. So this kind of gives you a look and feel of what it's like to have an Azure ARC resource. So let's go back and check on our compliance status. We can see our audit VM policy here is now completely compliant. So our VMs have switched their time zones. So let's go check that out. And we can see the guest VM time is at 1 o'clock and the host system is at 4 o'clock. And our VM is in Pacific time versus our main system, which is on Eastern time. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at Azure ARC and its potential for being a single management interface for all of your systems, whether they're in AWS, GCP, Alibaba, Rackspace, on-prem, or in Azure. And then you can leverage Azure's control plane, which will have more features added to it over time that would then allow you to have a truly unified management experience, making your life a lot easier. So if you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up and let me know that in the comment section that you liked it and what features you would like to see added to Azure ARC. And while you're down there, please click on that subscribe button and join us here at the Azure Academy community, where we just try to help everybody learn all about Azure. And if you want to be notified when our new videos come out, which is about once a week, you can click on that notification bell as well. So thanks for joining us for today's video, and we will see you in the next one. Happy learning.